Hello, hello. Hi, good evening. It is Tuesday. I have to remind myself what day of the week it is. I am really excited about tonight's event. I'm honored that we're going to have these special guests. Okay, so hold on. So 1, 2. Okay, let's see. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
I'm fangirling over here. All right. Chea, if you are watching, it says you're unable to join, and I don't know why. I hope you're watching on your phone. I see that you're here, but it won't let me add you. It says you can't join. So let's see what happens. All right. In the meantime, we'll just get chatting and we'll see what happens. So, oh my gosh. Okay. So seriously, like I'm like totally like you can't tell with the lighting because it's making my face look red, but I'm like totally blushing right now. Sydney knows me. Like it takes special people to make me excited. So I am very excited. So okay. So here comes Chea. I think she's coming. I think. It just said yes. Oh, it won't let her on. What? I thought you could have, I'm supposed to be able to add 3 people.
Yeah, I think
And it's saying only 3 guests can be in your live room. Okay, but she's not here yet. Okay, maybe she's still coming. Maybe it's like in transition. Yeah, I'm like, Mercury is not in retrograde. Come on, technology. Let's like talk about it. Like seriously. Okay. I'm like sweating. You can't see, but my pits are probably like all wet right now. Okay, it's gonna work. Chea, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. I would say text me, but we're on my phone right now. Okay, that's like so weird.
out and see if you have too many people on here.
Well, it says I can only have 3 guests, but there's only 2 right here. So it says she can't. Okay, Chea, it's saying you can't join, girl. I don't know why. Oh no. See, now it says, okay, I'm going to try request. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
That was stressful. Here we all are now.
Not to say that, like, I almost peed my pants just now. These technology things just never go as planned. So, anyway, so hi, everybody. Hi. I am, like, so excited. You know, it's a topic I wish we didn't have to talk about. But I'm excited for the fact that like people being willing to be vulnerable and share their story. And I think that, you know, while National Infertility Awareness Week is like really geared towards promoting education and, you know, talking about it and talking about loss and all of these things, and there's so much within the community that sometimes we have to remind ourselves that like we're not doing these events for ourselves, though we are in a lot of ways, right? Promoting community and solidarity, but we're also promoting a sense of awareness for people who are outside the traditional TCC loss community, that people who don't yet feel attached to it, maybe they're still keeping their story to themselves and they haven't come out about their loss or the mental health challenges around pregnancy after loss. And we know that that's very isolating. And we know that there's a lot of stigma associated with talking about it. And that's really so annoying. It is just, and it's so frustrating because you want people to just be able to be raw and vulnerable and talk about their truth, exactly how it feels to them, without the fear of judgment, without the fear of, oh crap, what am I going to hear now? And I think that there's just so much hope in that. And so I'm hoping, the word hope, I'm hoping that people watching this tonight and after tonight, I'll be posting it to YouTube so that it has like the closed captioning available, which just again, every time I get a chance, Instagram, get your act together. And so it'll be on there, and we'll have like all the links and resources that we talk about tonight, but it'll be available that people can share it and be able to see, oh, there is somebody like me, or, oh, they wrote a book, or, oh, this type of mental health resources is actually a thing. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, well, how do I find somebody? And they go to like a regular therapist and they don't have any grief background, and how to support vocabulary is very, very important when you're supporting people with dealing with an experience of pregnancy loss, and then dealing with a pregnancy after loss. So anyway, that is a huge part of why I wanted to do tonight and to have this event. Sydney, thank you so much for coming back. Sydney had shared her story back in October during Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and I'm so, so grateful for that. And also, you know, an honor to have unfortunately witnessed you going through your loss, and then, you know, the celebration with your little adorable girl. So it's so important for me to have visibility to the words pregnancy after loss and the impact that mental health has on that experience. And so I know I could go in and give like a whole bio on all three of you, but I'm not going to, because otherwise it'll be like the Jessie Show, and we don't need to be here for that. No, not tonight. So because I have been reading this, I'm going to have the famous author of this book start, because, oh my gosh, I have to say this is probably like one of the best books. Like, I am so excited to add this to my library. And before the author gives her intro, I am giving away this copy tonight. So if you or somebody you know could really benefit from a book called Still Here, A Memoir of Love, Loss, and Triumph After Stillbirth, if you know of somebody that can benefit for this, tag yourself, tag them, or drop me a DM, and we'll do like a little drawing on who gets this copy, but you should still get your own copy. Anyway, all right. I'm gonna shut up now.
Hello, everybody. I'm so honored to be here. My name is Alishia Anderson, aka AliAndeEnterprise, on most social media platforms. And like, I'm just honored that Jessie allowed me to, you know, sit on this panel. But a little bit about me. I help support angel moms who are going through grief, those who are trying again, those who are experiencing rainbow pregnancies and motherhood after loss, because I know it's a full gamut of emotions on this journey, from grief to having children again. And I'm also an author, which Jessie showed the book, and that was like a labor of love for me, just to flush out the feelings I was feeling during grieving my son. I lost my firstborn son, DJ, at 28 weeks. He was born stillborn in January of 2016. So that's a little bit about me. And I do have 2 living children now, one who is just turned 4 in March, and the other turned 1 last week. So, yes.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're here tonight.
Thank you.
Sydney.
So I'm Sydney. I had a 18-week loss in May of 2018. And then I had my rainbow baby of July of 2019. I'm also a labor and birth doula. So it was hard having a loss. I hate to say it was good and bad, but it was good and bad, because although I knew so much and I had the resources, I also had the resources, and Jessie being one, to actually have the support and work through, and to continue working through. Because as you said, motherhood after a loss is still something to navigate, and that's not something I thought about until it happened. So there's definitely more to the conversation that needs to be had, and I'm just glad that we're all here to have it.
Yeah, and it's a really important conversation. And I think, you know, you hit on it, Sydney, like with the thought of resources. And we talked a lot about, you know, well, what resources can I have access to talk about my grief with? And is this person the same person that can help me process my current pregnancy and now my baby after loss? And that's, you know, a very it's a very, I don't want to say it's a rare specialty, but it's hard to find the right provider that gets it. And that I'm a big advocate of using the right language so that you're not turning somebody off from wanting to seek the help. Because I think we see a lot of that. People have one bad experience and then they're like, I know I'm never going back to a therapist again, or I'm not going to talk about my story because all these people come out of the woodwork and they're telling me X, Y, and Z, and it's not helping me. And I think that that's a really huge piece to the healing part. But the grieving never really stops. It's how you manage the grief and what you do with the grief, and to give yourself permission to grieve whenever you feel it. And that's what I love about your book, is that you have like a whole chapter dedicated to the waves of grief. I think that's how you describe it. And so can we talk a little bit about, okay, so you have, Chea, sorry. Oh my God, you didn't even introduce yourself yet. Oh my God, okay. I'm like, let's just jump into it. Okay, sorry, Chea, who are you?
So invested in the conversation already. I'm like making notes. And sorry about the issues. I had to plug in, so now I'm holding my phone, so it's one of those days. Yeah, I'm Chea Weltchek. I am a therapist in Baltimore. I work mainly with the perinatal population, a lot of pregnancy after loss, a lot of moms who have just been through very traumatic birth and stillbirth and situations, and postpartum mood, and it's exactly what you said a minute ago, Jesse. The stigma associated with talking about it is really intense, and I think people in general, people are really uncomfortable like hearing other people's pain, and they want to fix it. And you're right, the wrong therapist says the wrong thing, and suddenly it's like not okay anymore to be in therapy. And that's part of what I hope to help spread the word on. Like, this is it's to specialize in this is hard. There are a lot of wrong things, and we all know all the wrong things people can say, and they do it like to try and be helpful and to try and fix it, but it just causes more pain. So
there's a whole chapter in this book on it. You didn't think I looked at your book. Oh, I read your book. And we're gonna talk about it too, because you really do. Of course I know you know the value of like what you put in here, but a lot of it is applicable to the conversation that we're having tonight. And so, okay, so let's talk about, seeking help. What does that look like? And then what did it look like for the two of you? And then we'll tie Chea into that conversation.
Do you want me to go first?
Whoever. I don't like to be like, okay, you go, go.
For me, I was actually in school at the time, and this was my first time ever seeking help. So I don't know, I come from a faith background. And so, a lot of times we're taught like, faith, prayer, it's very important, and rely on God and he has the answer, which is true for me. However, I'm like, in the physical, I need help here right now, and so one thing I had to let go was the stigma that I couldn't have both. It had to be one or the other. And so just kind of dropping that mindset and saying, I can have God, but I can also go to therapy. And, those two things couple help to make this journey a little bit easier for me. So I was in school. I actually went to the counselor's office in my school because I didn't know even where to begin to look for like therapists. And I actually found someone there to help me. So I actually got my sessions free as a student, as a service. So that was awesome for me. And she just really helped me see the big picture. And it felt good to have somebody that wasn't connected to my story. Like, she didn't know me, and she can kind of give me like an unbiased view of what she saw that I was experiencing. So that was very helpful for me.
Well, it's good though that like I read your book, Nurse Ginger really told you that you were going to need that support.
Yes, she did. While I was in the hospital, actually, and I still talk to Nurse Ginger to this day. We're actually Facebook friends. So I actually sent her the book when I wrote it, but she was a godsend for me because she prepared me, I think, for grief in a way that I don't think I would have been able to handle if she hadn't given me the heads up. So she like told us about men and women grieving differently and what that would look like. She also mentioned that if I needed help, that it's okay to seek it. She's like, you know, you're going to have those days where you don't feel like yourself, and don't be ashamed if you need to go look for some additional help. And so that kind of gave me the license to be like, okay, I think I can do this, you know, when I didn't feel I was getting better.
That's great. And then did you continue? I mean, I know at this point you probably have since graduated from school, and then were you still able to see that same therapist, or did you pursue
So I
therapy
pretty much
after?
saw her for the semester, and I hadn't been back to therapy since, but I have been talking to my husband about finding a new therapist, just, you know, to deal with motherhood in general. So that's been something that have had on my to-do list, to find another therapist, just because, just like as a fine tune, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, now it's out on social media that you said that you're finding it. So you have a lot of people watching who are going to be like, okay, accountability. We got you. We're going to make sure you get taken care of. Don't worry. I won't send you daily messages. But I think that brings up a good point, is like, you think that like it stops at that point, and then it's like, well, I do kind of probably need a tune-up and somebody to help me maintain this continual support, because the journey is still here.
Yes.
And now you have, you know, additional little ones, and so that's probably like a balance. Because you talk about that in the book a little bit too. So sorry, I'm like all about the book, because I really found it like, I just found it so like, it wasn't, you didn't sugarcoat anything, but you were being honest about what that experience was like, and then the mental process of what the journey, I hate using that word, but what the experience took you through. So yeah.
It was very interesting as far as the book. I wrote it over like a 2-year span. So I actually was going through grief while I wrote it. So at the very beginning, I can tell that it was very raw for me versus the end of the book, where I was expecting my rainbow baby again. So like the emotional roller coaster that I was experiencing in real time, I actually got to do it while I was writing the book. So that's what kind of makes it unique, in the fact that I can tell when I was like really starting that journey versus at the end, where it's like I feel a little bit of relief, if you can get any relief after a loss. But yeah, so I can definitely.
There was definitely a sense of growth in
definitely
different chapters. Yeah.
Definitely.
So Sydney, let's talk about you. What has that experience been for you? Because I know you and I have had that conversation, but you know, figuring out like when you were ready to seek support, and navigating the pregnancy after, you know, having had the loss, what went through your processing?
So for me, support comes in waves, I guess, in grief. So there are some times I feel like I need more support than others. And with my rainbow almost being 2 this year, I've honestly just realized how much grief I was going through, not necessarily through the pregnancy, because it was very fear-based. Every day felt like a million years, and every day felt like something was going to go wrong. But as soon as she was here, I thought it would go away, and it was worse. Now germs are going to get her. Somebody's going to take her. Something's going to hurt her. And for me, you know, I could control somewhat what was in my body when I was pregnant with her. But once she was out, I no longer had that physical control. And that's where it spiraled for me. And that's where I did see a therapist while I was pregnant. It wasn't consistent. And the hard thing about therapy, especially in the pandemic, is everybody is booked. Everybody has a waiting list because everybody needs therapy right now, which is great, but there's not enough therapists right now to accommodate everyone. So that has been hard. But again, as being a doula and as having you, Jessie, thank you, of course, to have those resources and trying out different people and seeing who maybe has an open list now and maybe who has one in a month or whatever. That helps a lot, but nobody prepared me for motherhood after a pregnancy loss. I I honestly feel like it's harder because it forces me to go back and really go through the grieving process of my firstborn. And now that she's almost 2, everybody's expecting, when are you guys trying for another one? I'm like, you know, you guys were asking before, I couldn't get pregnant. Now I got pregnant. And now it's just, it doesn't end. Just because we have a kid doesn't mean that it's easy for us to have another one, or that we can have another one right now. Or most importantly, if I'm ready to have another one right now, because I know that pregnancy was hard, but postpartum was harder. And I feel like I'm just now coming out of it. So to go right back into it is not an option right now. But for that to happen, I need to go through it. I need to get the support. And it's never going to, I feel like, get better. It's always going to be there, but you handle it better. You live life, but still acknowledge the child that you lost, and acknowledge that, you know, Sophia, I have to remind people that Sophia is the only child you see, but she's not the only child. So
yeah. And I think the more we talk about that and the acknowledgement piece, we're changing the conversation about that and saying, well, I have one here on earth, and then I have however many, you know, in heaven, or whatever vocabulary works, you know, terminology works for you. But yeah, I had a thought to follow that, Sydney, but now I'm mesmerized by the words that you just used, which you and I can always have those conversations.
And Jessie, thank you, because you were, I don't want to say one of only, but one of the only people that was consistently checking in on me the entire process, from the pregnancy to the loss to the fertility treatments to that pregnancy to even postpartum. And now she's almost 2. And, you know, Jessie and I have never met in person before, but she's somebody I can call on. I know at any time of the day, night, and she would answer. So I really thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Well, you're welcome, but I feel, to me, that's an obligation to the concept of community, and it's necessity. And I use that word not lightly. And in a lot of my posts on social media, I'm using that word for a reason, because this is how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to hold space for people in our community who need it. We're supposed to be able to serve the people in our community however they need it. We're supposed to learn and teach from each other as we need it. And I think that this is part of what that community should be looking like. And I take that very seriously, because it's essential to our health, mental and physical health. And, you know, again, that brings back into the concept of, like, we have to talk about this, because we have to change the narrative of what pregnancy after loss looks like. And for me personally, I've only had losses. I haven't had a baby to term. And so for me, like, I look to folks like you to share your stories, to validate the emotions, the anxiety that goes through it. Well, if I have to go through this again, and I think for a lot of people, that's a normal thought process, is I want to get pregnant again, but I'm scared as heck of what will happen if I do. And again, it goes back to, like, well, this is why we need somebody to give us the coping skills, such as Chea and other therapists, to really give us that support. And that's why I think that this conversation is essential. It is so essential, right? Because we can have postpartum depression even after a loss. I mean, it's a different type of depression, but it's still postpartum after loss, right? I mean, postpartum mental health. So anyway, so Chea, how can you tie this in? Bring it on in.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys, you're sharing your stories, and they're so powerful, and I'm so appreciative to be able to hear them. I think what you've said resonates on so many levels, and I hear it from so many people. And I think when we're seeking help, and we're talking about seeking help, I think about, like, 3 ways that we after loss need help, and it's there's different people for different things, right? Like, you're not going to call the exterminator to come and, like, do your electricity. Like, that person is for, like, a specific thing. And so when I'm talking to clients about setting up a support system, and we're looking for help, and this is hard because they're already in my office, so they've already found a therapist, which is so helpful. But I think in general, you're right, Sydney, when you said it's so hard to find someone right now. But there are 3 things that I think about, and it's groups. So other people that have experienced similar loss. And I'm going to give you guys a couple, I mean, at the end, when we're talking about resources, I'll shout out a couple of groups that are helpful for pregnancy after loss. So groups can be so helpful because they give validation, right? Which is what we all want in our pregnancy after loss, or even just after loss in general. If there's not a pregnancy yet, or if we're just sitting with all of that, like pain, despair, anxiety, like all these things that kind of come up for people. So groups can be really great in that they validate, and people can validate each other. And there is some healing, and I think, Ali, you said relief, if there is any, like some healing in helping other people too. And I think actually that's the beauty of this book that you just wrote. And I'm sure the process of, I'm like getting emotional talking about it. The process of like writing that just in itself was just like, I'm sure, such an amazing experience. And healing, because now you know you're putting it out there to help other people. So I think that can be really helpful in a group. Individual therapy obviously is helpful if you find the right therapist. And I tell people all the time, even when people call, it's just such a relationship fit and it's such a personality match. And sometimes like it's not a good fit, and like that's okay. Just look for the next person. Let's find the next person. I'll help you find the next person if it doesn't feel like the right fit. So that's the other thing, is like, yes, sometimes it doesn't fit or feel good, and so it's time to move on. And then the third is social support. So things like this, but are not like specific to the experience. So friends that you have that you can talk to that can validate instead of diminish or try and fix, those people are really helpful. So I think, Jesse, if the topic is seeking help, like those are kind of the three places that I would think about getting help. Even just in talking about like all of the feelings and normalizing them. Like it's so normal to feel anger, resentment, anxiety, jealousy, envy, despair, sadness, guilt, shame, like all these things. And having other people to talk about it with and normalize it is just so, so helpful for the process.
Yeah, and I think that being able to use your voice in allowing that, because some people say it's such a hot conversation, and it always comes up around like big events within like loss or infertility, like, am I oversharing? Am I not sharing enough? Am I telling them too many details or not? And I think it's like, this is an outlet to be heard, to get it out of your head, and you never know who's going to need to hear those raw words of like, okay, today really sucks, and I don't like the world, and I want to curl up in my bed, put my pillow over my head, and just go to sleep right now, and then wake up tomorrow. Like, today is like over, and it's only 9 o'clock in the morning. Like, sometimes people need to hear that they're the only ones who don't want to take a shower for days. And it's like, okay, like, this is how I feel. Oh, you mean like I shouldn't be over it already? And with those clear expectations of like, well, why are you still grieving? You have another child. Like, you should be lucky that you have this new child in your arms, and like, look at those blessings. And it's like, yeah, but I missed the one that should be here with us right now, like right now, not that, like right now. And I think that that's part of like, figuring out like, what resources are applicable, because not every resource is going to be the same. Like, some people are going to be like, yes, groups are like totally the way for me. I'd rather do that than seek somebody individually. Or I do not want to be around a bunch of strangers sharing my story, sitting around in a circle or on Zoom and like talking about this stuff. Like, no, thank you. You don't know me. I don't know you. I don't want to know you. And then it's like, I'd rather just see like an individual practitioner like for that support. And it's about finding what works for you. And for some people, social media is it, but I also feel like even if you're using social media as an outlet to be heard and to be seen, you might also want to get some other coping skills and tools and resources that can help you along the way. I'm a huge advocate of storytelling. I think storytelling is what empowers people to take care of themselves, to take care of their physical and their mental, and then as well as like finding community, because you never know who you're going to meet along the journey when you do share. But it's one part, I think. I don't know. This is me. Chea is the expert here, right? I mean, you guys are all the experts here, but like, it's like a piece to it. But I think that it's a part of that mental support, because we need to know that we're not alone. We need to know that there's solidarity. And I think that solidarity is like a big component of like, okay, I'm not alone. It feels like I'm alone because nobody in my circle knows what I'm going through. And I think somebody, I don't know if it was in the book or if somebody was talking about it earlier, maybe it wasn't in the book. You know, like none of your friends had gone through pregnancy. Okay, so it was you. Okay. So like none of your friends you couldn't ask anybody like what it was like. And, you know, that's like an ample opportunity for the use of social media of like, hey, this is what I'm going through. And by hashtags and following different accounts, like you never know like what's gonna connect you. And then they'll connect you to the resources that you may want to check out, like groups or specific practitioners. Okay, I'm like rambling here. We can so. But Chea, what would you say would be like people, my clients who experience pregnancy loss, for those who are watching, I'm a massage therapist that specializes in reproductive health and oncology, but on this topic, reproductive health. And so I see people who are trying to conceive, people who have had losses, miscarriage, stillbirth, they've lost their infants after they've been born. So I see these clients and, you know, bodywork is such like a healing presence for the mind and the body. And in so many powerful ways that we forget how amazing touch can be and just space being held for you. Anyway, that's a whole other event. But you know, people will ask me, you know, well, when's a good time not to necessarily start trying again, but, you know, how long should I give myself before I seek help or before like I talk about my story and like, how do I go about that? And there really is no right or wrong like answer for that. Like you seek the support as you need it, right?
Yeah, you seek the support as you need it. And it's so funny because the anxiety that like goes around with this is, you know, people with anxiety, people want things to be black and white, right? Like it gives us control. If we think that it's this way or this way, then we have control over the situation. And if you're feeling like you need help, like you don't want to do this alone, I think it should be like mandated. Everyone has to go to therapy after a loss because it's so helpful for people's mental health. It helps them clarify, it helps them understand, it gives them validation, and it helps them process what just happened, which for a lot of people can be extremely traumatic. I read a book recently, and one of the definitions, and I talk about this a lot with clients, of trauma, and trauma can be a triggering word for people. Some people are like, that wasn't traumatic. And I'm like, yeah, no, that wasn't traumatic at all. But trauma, if you think about it as the experience of broken connection and you apply it to pregnancy after loss, a lot of people feel trauma. And with that comes like all these other feelings, and it's really complicated. And then deciding to get pregnant again is really complicated. Can I handle this? What's going to happen? It might be out of my control, and like letting go of that piece of control is really hard for people. And I think it was Ali that was saying, then it becomes like this whole thing, like the whole, like, what is parenting besides an exercise in lack of control? Like what, you know, what do we have control of actually? And it becomes just like this whole life thing. And so I think, you know, if someone is suffering, if you're suffering, if you feel like you're suffering, you don't have to suffer like that alone. And it does feel really isolated and lonely. Most of the people that I talk to, even people that had miscarriages years ago, still feel isolated and alone and lost because they feel like they're the only person that remembers the baby, you know, and that is really hard. And so having another person that, even if it's a check-in therapist that you can go once a month, once a year, show up and be like, oh my God, I have to talk. It's the due date. I have to talk about the baby. I need someone to talk about that'll validate me. And I need to learn how to talk to other people about it. Someone also mentioned the difference between a non-birthing partner and the partner that was pregnant, maybe experienced the loss physically. And the grieving process can be very different. And what does that mean about my partner or me, that I'm grieving so differently or more intensely than them? And it's just a really complicated process. And people go through it alone all the time. But I guess as a therapist, like I wish no one had to do that, you know. I don't know if that answers your question. Like right away, come see me.
I think, yeah, but I think that, you know, Alishia talked about, her nurse set her up for like what to expect. So she knew that it was going to be hard. She and her husband both knew. And in her book, not that I'm trying to plug your book, but I really read the book, okay? Her husband has a chapter, like his perspective on grief. And it's different than hers. And I think that that's a good reminder that like giving each other the acknowledgement of that you seek the support as you need it. If you feel like, okay, you know what, I can't talk to my partner about this anymore right now. Like I need somebody who's non-biased, like who doesn't know either of us, like that's an ample opportunity, a perfect opportunity. And if it's like straight away, then you talk to somebody right away, like that's okay. And then if you feel like, well, I need to wait, there's so much stigma around seeking mental health support, and we have to like, that's a whole nother event, but that's like, but specifically around this, it's like, we have to change that conversation. And I think that there's a lot of people, including everybody on here, who's working hard in that conversation. And I'm sure both Sydney and Alishia, you guys are like having these conversations with people that you talk to, right? Like what's that like when you're talking to other people? What are you hearing?
Go ahead, Sydney.
So shy, like on cue, like for sure.
That was a big eye.
It's hard. But and then I'll also say, like, as a white person, a cis white person, I know that the conversations are different in Black communities. And there's a lot of stigmas that are very different. And that is worth mentioning in this program, because that's very, very important, especially as we're coming out of Black Maternal Health Week, which was last week. So yeah.
Well, Alishia was saying, I do come back from a faith-based background, and it was, I don't want to say pray it away, but pray it away and everything will be okay. And I was vocal from the second I lost Jonah. I was vocal about how I felt, what I didn't like, correcting people, and that is just my personality, to kind of be a little fiery, but it felt even more fiery than it did before. And I knew it was a lot of postpartum anxiety, because I was so passionate about it, and it felt like people weren't, or because he wasn't full term, or because, whatever way you want to slice it and dice it, it's okay, you're young, you can try again. And it's not that black and white. It's not that black and white at all. I have, like I said, I have my rainbow now, and I look at her and I say, she should be having her older brother here. You know what I mean? They should be playing together. Like I said before, the whole when are you getting a sibling thing is very hard for us right now. And sometimes I'm just like, no, we're not. Not right now. We're not ready. Or maybe. Just something very quick, and people know, okay, leave it alone. But that's pretty much, you have to know your crowd. There are some people you can talk to and they can understand you and they will validate you. And there are some people you just know, just don't bring it up. Just don't bring it up. And you'll see a lot of energy.
Are you someone who you want people to say Jonah's name? Like you want them to acknowledge his presence? I know that varies for, some people, they're like, well, I don't want to hear the name. But are you someone who's like...
For people that I know and know my story and know my situation, absolutely. But in the grocery store, and sometimes I feel guilty and I say, yeah, she's our only child right now. And that's just simply because I don't want to go through this story with this stranger in the grocery store.
Sure.
You know me and we have a relationship and that's dear to me, then yeah, I would like for you to address Jonah as our firstborn son.
Yeah,
awesome.
Agreed.
Thank you. Yeah.
For sure. With me, I definitely made sure that I talked about DJ very early in my process of just grief. And I think it helped open, especially like my immediate family, up to like, because my mom always jokes she's very private, and my dad is a pastor, so he's very like share. So I'm kind of like in between them on the spectrum, but I think it's helped them just open up to see like, yes, DJ is a part of my everyday life. I'm his mom, and I still parent him although he's not here. And so I like for people to acknowledge him, because he is part of my family. And it's like that one thing where it's always like one missing puzzle piece. So like when you see my family, you see, oh, they're complete, they're so cute, you know? But when I see it, it's like, but there's still a piece missing, you know? And that part is hard. But for me, the way that I acknowledge him is my honor to him, and it's the way that I can keep him alive even though he's not physically here.
Yeah, and I think that for some people, they struggle with how to have that communication take place with their family. And I think that by seeing a provider that can help give you the language or like some cues of how to communicate effectively, or at least that you feel you communicated effectively. And it's like one of those things, like you can only do so much, and whether or not they take, you know, they take it or not, like that's up to them. But at least you can feel good about, well, I tried and I made the effort to educate and provide that information. But that's another reason why I will refer to therapists, so that people can feel more comfortable, because your voice starts to get a little softer when you're like having like those conversations, right? And so by having ownership to the words that you speak, it can give you that power, your shoulders back, chin up, like, yes, like this is what I need from you, and this is how I need you to provide the support. So I'm sure, Chea, you probably would have said that, but I'm like, this is why I send people to therapists, because it's like, it is so hard to communicate with people who don't get it.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. Like we do talk a lot about boundaries setting and communicating in healthy ways. And there's like so many nods happening. Because unfortunately, there's some people we just can't avoid that are probably part of our family that just don't really understand. And they usually have good intentions or well-meaning intentions. And it's just, it doesn't come out right. Like it just isn't, the words don't flow correctly. And so I do talk to clients a lot about prefacing when you're going to have a conversation and you know that stuff is going to come up. This is what I need from you in this conversation here. And also, this is what I don't need from you in this conversation. When you say that, it makes me feel, or when I hear that, it makes me feel blah, 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 blah. Usually that, just starting the conversation that way, like disarms someone. They haven't, I mean, if you say, oh, when you said last time that at least you're young enough, you can have another one, or you can try whatever they say, everything they say, then you can disarm them and make them be like, oh, okay, like I can have this conversation, they can have it the way they want, and this is how they need to be supported. It doesn't always go down perfectly, and I think the problem with that parents often feel, or people that have been trying to conceive often feel, or people that are pregnant now after a loss or have just had a loss feel, is that now the responsibility feels like it's on them to like have to have this conversation. Mm-hmm. And I try and empower my clients to be like, you don't have to have the conversation at all. You can just eat the words, and that doesn't feel good either. Or you can say, this is what I need from you next time we have this conversation. And also create like a mantra is another thing that I recommend for clients. And it may be just as simple as they mean well and they have no idea. I was about to put an effing in there.
I've been dropping the word like for the last couple weeks. It's fine. I won't check it. I don't think either of these but again, this is all like, I mean, I'm gonna say this is all a mind fuck, right? And it's like trying to have communication skills. We are not taught how to handle this type of support for people. This is missing from our educational school system.
Communication in general. Like, when are we going to start teaching communication? Yeah. Oh my gosh, we will be here like all night if we go down this rabbit hole. But it is so important because words do matter, and words can cause more harm, and words can uplift and support and nourish ourselves. And it is so important when someone is with their rainbow baby, you know, if that's the term that you use for your baby after loss, like there is so much to be said about that. And there's a sacredness that is very, very special about that. And it has all of these things that are like in the hamster wheel, and we're trying to get those things out. And how we communicate with other people
determines how many more words are put in that hamster wheel that we're constantly thinking about. And then we're second guessing ourselves, or we're like wondering, like, is it ever going to end? Like all those things. And how we choose to effectively use our voice with other people can definitely make a difference in that experience. Instead of, you know, looking back and saying, that was 5 years of hell, because people kept wondering if we were ever going to have another baby, or if we were going to like add, you know, keep adding to our family, or like what the deal was. And, you know, I talk to people all the time, and I read stories on social media of just people saying, like, you know, before we decided to go through fertility treatment, we were still, you know, grieving our loss from like 5-10 years ago, and we weren't over it. We're never going to be over it. But everybody says that, like, we should be, because now we're focused on this. But you can have both of those things. Grief is simultaneous with life. It happens. It comes, things are going great, and then they crash, and then we're like, ugh. And then it's like the same thing. And I think, you know, how we support each other is very important along those waves. And I think, Sydney, you were, you know, talking about it, like how people approach you, and the support that you brought into your space was really important based on what you needed at that time, and figuring out, okay, I got to start somewhere, and all of that. Yeah. Okay. I'm like rambling again. Sorry. I'm like all these Jessie inner thoughts of like this conversation, because it is, I think it is important. And, you know, I don't know everybody who's watching. I can't even see with my glasses, like everybody who's like watching without looking like a grandma, like all up on there. But I'm hoping if anybody is watching and you have questions or thoughts or anything like that, please feel free to like drop them in the comments. Because once I save this, the comments don't save. So you have to write your comments all over again. So please write comments so that we can see, have some interaction. For people who are newly joining us, I am going to be giving a copy of this book. I think I was going to give away this copy, but now I'm keeping this one from my library. I have a lending library for my pineapples and for my clients. So Pineapple Connections is a support group, peer-to-peer support group that I run locally, and I guess nationally now. But so I'm always like sending books out, but now I'm like, okay, I'll just order you one and send you one. But you can get your copy of Still Here, A Memoir of Love, Loss, and Triumph After Stillbirth. This is a really, really incredible book, and I've read a lot of personal story books over the years, and I think that what you've written is so unique in how it's laid out, the different chapters. Like, really, I was like, okay, is this, not that I was prejudging, because I wasn't, but I was like, I hope this isn't like the other ones. But it wasn't, like, at all. Like you talk about dealing with grief, her story, his story. You talked about, the different waves of grief and like what to anticipate. You talked about, what's this one? Oh, the emotions itself, which is separate from the grief chapter. And then you talk about, you got a whole thing on insensitive responses, which I think everybody in their family should be reading, like literally chapter 15. You should read it. And then the lessons that you've learned from loss, and then your after loss, conceiving again and rainbow babies. And then the chapter after that, which is, don't worry, I'm not going to number like all, I don't know, is it 20 chapters or 19 chapters or something like that? But I really appreciate the chapter 18, which is second time around, my rainbow baby is here, now what? And I think that that's the anticipation that everybody always wants to like think about. So please, if you are watching and you want to get a copy of this book, tag yourself, tag a friend, send me a DM, like all the lingo. I don't know if I'm missing anything else, but so I don't want to keep everybody too much longer, because time is of the essence these days. But for any last parting words about, oh, you have resources, Chea. You want to share your resources?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna send I can't speak right now. So Pregnancy After Loss Support. .org, they have a great list of online individual providers and groups, and Return to Zero also have groups and individual providers, and PSI, Postpartum Support International, I don't think they're running a group for pregnancy after loss right now, but they do run a whole bunch of other groups for moms, dads specifically. I mean, they are run for pregnancy loss, but not for pregnancy after loss. That's a tongue twister for you. Those are a couple of resources that I have.
Yeah, there's one that is also national, and in Maryland we have 2 chapters. The Tears Foundation, they do also have pregnancy after loss group. Trying to think of what else is local, but I know people who are watching are not all local to Maryland. So sorry, you wish you were here.
On
Maryland's the cool state. Thank you very much. Woo-hoo! Just kidding. Not really. Okay. When I post this video up to YouTube, I'll also include the resources. Now, do our other 2 panelists have any resources you want me to make sure that everybody who's watching knows about? No? Okay, don't everybody go at once.
Sorry. I work with RTZ Hope. So right now we're doing a BIPOC support group, and we'll be doing another one in the fall. So for moms who've experienced loss that are in the BIPOC community, you can join that as well.
That's awesome. I saw that just got announced recently, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I got my email from Kylie, so that's how I remember.
Yes.
Okay.
There is a question in the comments.
Too. I can't read.
It's actually from my brother.
Oh, okay.
He said they were expecting my nephew when my son died first go around. So he said, how can we be more supportive without triggering grief as a family or as your family? So what I would say is give the grieving person space and let them kind of set up how they want to go about. So for me, seeing newborn babies wasn't bad, but seeing pregnant women was really hard for me because I didn't get to make it that far in my pregnancy. So that was more triggering than seeing actual babies. And my brother actually lived in a different state. So it was a little easier because I didn't see the baby, but seeing pictures of the baby, I was excited, but it's like a touch and go thing. You don't know what will be your trigger until you experience it. Yeah. And just give grace to those that are grieving because it's hard for us because there's no manual and there's no manual for you as the support. So just to kind of give each other grace, and if there's a way that if you can't, go to baby showers, or if you can't be around the baby, allow them that space and know it's not personal. I don't want to be around you. It's not that. It's just like you don't want to grieve and change the mood, but it's like I just can't handle being there today, and have that support.
Yeah, and not giving the person a hard time for choosing to not come.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, the guilt trip never feels good. Like, I don't know. Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm glad that your brother is watching, and I'm sure he probably also provided support. I'm hoping he provided support.
He did. He absolutely did. All my family was very, very supportive, so I am appreciative of that.
Oh, awesome. Okay. I don't know how you guys are like reading any of this. Maybe I need new prescriptions. I'm like, I can't even see. Okay, sorry. I'm like, I should probably cover up the camera. Okay, is there anything else? I don't think I'm seeing anything else.
I think that
okay. Like this is going so bad because I'm like all up in the camera here. Okay. Okay. Who's in Maryland? Well, 3 of us. Well, technically I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm just over the border. Maryland is right down the street, 1.5 miles. But Chea and Sydney are technically in Maryland. So, yeah. There better not be any sour Maryland jokes in there. Okay. Well, I am so grateful. Does anybody have any last parting words that they want to share? Oh, wait, is that your brother? That's your brother. Yeah. So he's in Maryland.
Yes.
Oh.
Just moved there. They just relocated, so.
Oh, so when you come, you're like, okay, reunion. Okay. Okay.
I guess I have a parting word. I think something that I work a lot with clients on is having self-compassion around this. And when I talk about self-compassion, I like to talk about 3 parts. So mindfulness, so paying attention and giving yourself space if you need it, and paying attention to what all those things are that come up. the other part is self-kindness. So talking to yourself like you would talk to a friend, and not like you're doing anything wrong, because you're not. We all know that sometimes it's hard in logical brain to go there, like when you're in it. And then the third part is common humanity. So it does feel really isolating and lonely, but to recognize like the part of being human is suffering, and suffering is kind of a universal part of like that experience. And so you're not alone in pain. And how can you find other people that can support you through whatever you're going through? So I think just having self-compassion can be so helpful. It's a practice like yoga or meditation or any of the other things that you have to work at, but it can be really helpful to people. And I found in my own practice that when people start implementing, especially self-kindness, they find some relief, at least from the way that they talk to themselves.
Oh, yay, this is helping people. Well, I'm so glad that you're on watching. Okay. Okay, and our two other guests, you guys have any?
I guess just for anybody that is struggling through infertility loss, pregnancy loss, infant loss, child loss, whatever loss it is. I know it sounds cliche, you know how everybody says one day at a time. I remember for me, I had to tell myself sometimes 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, then 1 day at a time, and work yourself, up from there. But to some people, a day seems like forever. So you really have to start small and just be kind to yourself.
And I would just say that you don't have to choose, like if you are deciding to get pregnant again, or you're going through that journey of having your rainbow baby, that you don't have to choose between the two, that your new baby does not replace your old baby, and that you can honor your angel baby and celebrate your rainbow, because you don't have to choose. You're the parent of both, and you get to decide what that looks like as you're parenting them. You get to create a lane for you that makes the most sense. And acknowledgement for me was key, so that I didn't feel like I was leaving my son behind, even though I had a baby in my arms. And if you need help, ask, because there are people that are here for you, that are willing to help you, walk alongside you in this journey. You don't have to do it alone.
Thank you. I am so grateful for all three of you for being here tonight. And we definitely, will hold DJ and Jonah in our hearts moving forward, for sure, as, they definitely are helping us to learn and to be better humans. And I thank you all so much. And for those of you who are watching, I am grateful as well. And so if you are watching again and you're watching the recap, if you know of someone or you yourself would like a copy of this amazing book, again, still here, A Memoir of Love, Lost, and Triumph After Stillbirth. I'm not getting paid to promote this. I really, really do believe that this book is amazing. So Chea, you should make sure that you get a copy for your library. So.
I wrote it down, and I can't wait to read the chapter about insensitive things. I cannot wait.
It goes along with, excuse my language, goes along with the shit people say thing. Like it is. Yeah, you got it.
Yes.
And where can people get the book?
It is on Amazon, so you can find it there. You can also visit me on my website at www.AliAndeEnterprise. So that's AliAndeE Enterprise. And you can find, I have merch there. I have my books that will take you to the link there. And I always love to connect with other parents, that have experienced loss. So if you need to DM me, please do. I love to chat with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. And thank you. I feel like there's something else I need to word vomit out here. But all right, well, we will end tonight. And thank you to all of our guests, and thank you to everybody who is watching. You can find the link to my YouTube channel in my bio. And so give it about 24 hours for the captions to kick in. And that will be available for accessibility. And tomorrow, I do want to plug, tomorrow is Wednesday night. The third Wednesday of every month is Pineapple Connections. So anybody who's dealt with any type of infertility or pregnancy loss is always welcome. Tomorrow we have Dr. Carol from ART Compass, an embryologist who is going to talk about embryology. So if you are interested in that, you can check the link in bio and you can join us for the evening. I'm really, really excited. It's a cool topic that we haven't had yet before, and it's a free hangout. So you're welcome. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.